Okay. Yeah, as was mentioned, we're here to present what we're calling the Barrier Loaner Program. This is something that we presented to committee last week as a report, and it was requested that we bring this before the council. There are several events that are upcoming that would potentially want to take advantage of this sort of program, so we wanted to run by the council and see what kind of feedback we could get. You'll recall that last year the council passed some updates to an ordinance that would allow for beer and wine gardens in association with public events in the right-of-way. We previously had an ordinance that would allow for it in city parks, and the update of the ordinance allowed for it in the right-of-way so that for events like there was recently an ordinance for Art Walk that came before the council. Those types of events, we could have beer and wine gardens established, and we've had people take advantage of them. People have really liked them. We've had local businesses. The idea was to keep Moscow's downtown a vibrant place. We want it to be an attractive place that people want to come for events, and so it's great that our business community has embraced this ordinance, and we've had several businesses hire bands and set things up in the right-of-way, and the great thing that we're seeing this year is we're starting to see them collaborate with one another, and so 2 or 3 businesses are getting together and they're holding events, and so this is something that we think is great. You know, down the road, things like an Oktoberfest or something that can really be an attractive addition to the activities in our downtown. One of the problems that we were running into, and really the only issue that had been brought up since the passing of the ordinance, was a lack of consistency with the way that the beer and wine gardens were established. It's something that we've run into with other similar type items downtown. For example, last year we passed our new event closure policy for the traffic control downtown, because it's something where we really as a city want to use our institutional knowledge to help remove barriers that would otherwise keep people from holding events, and that's something that we did with our road closures, because, you know, the average person who doesn't deal with this every day, they don't know what barriers they need or where to get them or how to get them set up. And so this program is kind of a similar approach as far as helping them have the right equipment to properly establish the beer and wine gardens. And so the city has 50 barriers that were procured through a Department of Homeland Security grant, I guess about 15 years ago. And the barriers have been not very frequently used because, you know, they are for emergency events, special events, things that we need to do crowd control on. We checked with Homeland Security to make sure that this proposed use would be in line with the grant, but and they indicated that it would be something that we could use it for. And so what we were proposing is that we start a program by which we make these barriers available to the applicants for these types of events so that we can have consistent, compliant barriers available for it. And so then there really wouldn't be any excuse when the police go to enforce this for someone not to have a consistent, compliant barrier because we've made them available. And so that's the intent of what we're going to do, or what we're proposing tonight. I'm going to have Tammy Gray, who's here with me, talk a little bit about how we would implement that program. And what that interaction would be.
Hello.
Hi.
Currently, the Streets Department has 2 similar programs. We've got a litter pickup program and the banner program that I manage. We schedule and I keep track of on the calendar who's got what, when. We want to make sure with this program that the police events take priority with the barriers. Should something arise, come up, we'll put that in place on the applications, and make sure that people know first off that should something arise, well, that's going to take precedence. Once the events are approved, we'll make sure that they get the application and it comes to me for scheduling, and we'll get that approved, and I guess it comes back. The people applying are responsible for coming in, scheduling, picking them up, and bringing them back, and we'll just inspect when they bring them back. So I guess
So yeah, we think that we can keep this a fairly simple process. It's something that the application can be included with the application packet, because the applications for the events themselves are already coming through and being approved by the council. So we would include an application for a barrier, something that they can select to do or not. But if they choose to apply for the barrier, then that would go through the approval process, and then it would come over to us. We would schedule it. We'd have the caveat that if any of the barriers were needed for any emergency use, that we would retain the right to recuperate the barriers, to go take them back and use them as needed. In addition, we would be keeping with the initial program, as we saw how things worked, we'd be keeping 25 barriers in reserve that we would keep for police uses only, and so we'd make 25 available initially and kind of just see how it goes and see how that might work. As Tammy mentioned, they would schedule a pickup time. They'd come pick them up themselves. These will fit in the back of a pickup truck. They're pretty light and easy to move around. And then they would drop them, and then they'd schedule a time to drop them off, at which point we'd do an inspection, make sure there weren't any missing or damaged, count them, make sure they're all there. And so any missing or damaged barriers, there would be a $110 fee to recuperate the cost of that barrier. And then we would have a fee. In this proposal, we have a $2 fee per barrier. And so if someone wants to set up, the normal size barriers that we're seeing would probably require about 10 lengths of these. They're about 8-foot lengths. And so you could set up an enclosure that would be about the size of a lot of them that we're seeing, with about 10 barriers. So that would be $20 that the applicant would pay in the fee, and that would cover the eventual replacement of the barriers and then any administrative costs that we incur just running the program and keeping it operating. We think that's a pretty fair fee. We think that that's something that would be pretty palatable to people versus going out and trying to figure out what they're going to use and grabbing some rope here and a sawhorse there. If they can have something that they know is going to be compliant and that our police department is going to be happy with when they arrive to inspect, that we think that that's probably going to be something that will be well responded to. And so, that would require the fee schedule to be opened up, because that fee would have to be added then within the fee schedule. So with that, we're open to any questions you might have about what we're proposing.
Tyler, I'll get to these guys here in a minute, but it seems to me as many new events and different things with beer gardens and wine gardens that we're having in our city, and that's going to continue to grow because there's been success with that without any problems. And so I think this makes total sense, and they're all the same thing, so that they would be unique, so that people would get used to them, and I think this makes sense. And I know Jim and Art both had.
At Public Works and Finance, there was some discussion about the conforming height of the barriers versus what's in the code.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with that?
Thank you, Art. Yeah,
Was it 4 feet or something, or 44 inches, or?
And currently each event has required its own. Rod, help me.
Its own what?
Resolution. Thank you. Its own resolution. And so within the resolution, there was standard language used within the resolution that called out for a 48-inch barrier. These are 44 inches high. And so as we move forward, those resolutions would be updated to reflect the height that would be used for the barrier. Is that
Any issue with that, Rod, for any?
No, I think there's a sample resolution in there with a changed language in it, in your packet.
Okay, did you have the same
No,
question?
that's
Jim, or-
what I was.
Dan?
I had a couple. So I think in admin, we talked a little bit about a damage deposit, but so are we going to go away from that for now and see how it works? I know that's what John kind of was thinking, was to stick with, maybe just the minimal fee.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, and maybe it's a question for us up here, are we going to require that this is the only type of barricade for a beer garden, or really we're only going to have 25 available at any time if we're trying to keep the other 25 for emergency use? That at that size is really going to only allow 2 to go at a time. So we're still going to be allowing the other style, say with a snow fence or something like that.
As long as they were compliant and met those stipulations of the height, and they have the established point of ingress and egress and those sorts of things. That's the thought. Now, what we talked about with Gary, our city manager, our city supervisor, was the idea that we'd see how the program went, and if it was successful, we could potentially look at adding more barriers if it's something that the community really responds well to, and potentially we could we could see how many we hold in reserve and take a look at that stuff and see what we can make available.
Well, here's a point, this would be for Rod, because anytime an event's held, you could have 4 people that need different resolutions because they got 4 different things going on. This is hypothetical. And each one of those resolutions could address that, couldn't it, Rod?
Yeah, you can have it address whatever you want it to be your resolution.
So our barriers would be held as a first come, first served, just like we do with the banner programs. So we eliminate any favoritism or anything else. You get on the calendar, you're the first one to ask for it, you're the first one to get it.
Then I guess the next thing, if we start getting more, how hard are these to store? I mean, how much room is this going to end up taking up?
They really don't take up much room, Dan. They overlap when they sit next to each other, and so the feet overlap where they store, and so they can be pretty. They're pretty compressed. You can put them in a pretty tight space. You know, I mean, we've got 50 of them, and they're probably stored in the distance between me and Catherine.
Okay. Art?
I would make a motion to approve the barrier loaner program, allowing for the city barriers to be used for permitted beer and wine gardens and other events in city parks and rights-of-way. And to go ahead and complete the study, see if the $2 fee is applicable with the other stipulations that we had involved. You break it, you buy it, and that the police can recoup their barriers at the drop of a hat if needs be.
Okay, now, okay, did you second that, Catherine?
I did.
That was a pretty long,
He just was addressing,
okay, well, let me finish this so I can make sure. The ad lib after the rights-of-way are included within the resolution, correct?
The things that Art talked about would be in that resolution.
Yeah, I believe so.
Is that right, Rod? Okay, so the $2 fee, the damage fee, and the other things that Art was talking about, it will be in the resolution. That does not need to be part of this motion.
Well, I thought you were going to do it as a trial first without the fee and then adjust it if they need the fee.
No,
It was not as proposed.
so I have a question
Okay,
then.
Dan?
And maybe this is for Gary and for staff. So if we, once we approve this motion, go ahead and direct you guys to amend the fee resolution, that'll have to come back for us next meeting then.
Yeah, we'll look, if I may.
Yes,
We'll
go
look
ahead,
at, may have some other things that we need to bring in. As you know, if you're implementing a new fee or increasing a fee
Right.
5% or more, you have to have a public hearing.
Right.
So it'll be a couple of meetings before we can do that, but we'll get it done as quickly as possible.
Okay. Okay, so,
We'll change those last ad libs into direction for staff.
okay, so the motion,
So in the interim, before we pass the fee thing, could you loan them out for free? If we pass the approval of the loaner thing? And then when we institute the fee, then the fee will come on then? So if there were things that happened in the interim, they could go ahead and happen?
Yeah, if we were directed to do that, we'd follow the direction
Got a
that
beer
we
garden that's
received.
coming up?
Well, there were at least 2 on the consent agenda.
We'll hurry with
Tonight.
the fee resolution.
And
Okay, so-
the one in May probably would not be using it at the Ren Fair.
Yeah, they probably have a different thing anyway.
okay, the motion by Art and the second by Catherine is to approve the barrier loaner program allowing the city berries to be used for permitted beer and wine gardens for events in city parks and right-of-ways, period. Right? Okay, Dan, we'll start with you.
Aye.
All right.
aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you very much, Tyler. Thank you, Tammy.